Welcome to Time is Not on Your Side with your host, board-certified litigation attorney Robert Eckard. In every episode, we'll hear from other attorneys, accountants, and other professionals who can impact the success of your litigation. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, roberteckardlaw.com. Now here's the host of Time is Not on Your Side, Rob Eckard.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Time is Not on Your Side. I'm Robert Eckard, board-certified business litigation attorney and government investigation specialist, where we bring you guests and topics that you won't hear about on one platform. Today's episode, I'd like to title it The Real LA Law, what it's like practicing in the land of Hollywood. Today's guest with us directly from Los Angeles is attorney John Torbett. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Let me tell you a little bit about John. And I've known John for going on 20 or 25 years. John's a trial lawyer from Southern California based in Los Angeles, whose practice focuses on generally business litigation, real property litigation, insurance litigation, bad faith, commercial landlord disputes, partnership disputes, corporate governance, and entertainment litigation, including securities litigation. John's represented clients in the film and TV industry, interior design, internet commerce and publishing, finance, consumer finance, real estate development, and investments. John has tremendous experience in corporate law, asset purchase and sales, as well as entity and business formation. John has tried multiple, and I know this is an understatement, jury trials, and has handled cases involving FINRA litigation. John has received, and quite rightfully, settlements in the neighborhood of north of well over six figures, some in the neighborhood of well over seven figures in his litigation. And he's been lead trial counsel in condemnation cases against the city of Los Angeles, where he obtained a $5.5 million judgment for his clients. He represents clients in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, and before John became an associate or of counsel to Kramer trial attorneys in Los Angeles, John graduated from Vanderbilt University with a BA in economics and received his Juris Doctorate from Southern Methodist University, SMU School of Law in Dallas, Texas. John, again, thanks for being here today. Let's jump right into it.
It's great to be here. It's great to see you, my friend.
Now, I met you, John, back in 2004. If you recall, we were talking about this week. We were trying a civil racketeering case, for lack of a better term, at that time, out in Los Angeles. I guess it was state court or superior court. The Castleberry versus Spiller case. You remember that one?
I remember. That's how you and I got to be friends. I felt like it's a little bit like you go to boot camp sometimes for people that have, depending on the case and the trial, you have your co-counsel that you're working with. And it's a little bit like boot camp. You're working your butt off and you are, splitting up duties and preparing for a conflict, so to speak. And you and I got to be fast friends. I was glad I met you. I was your local counsel there, and I was learning from you. I mean, we started in 2004. I think we had the trial in 2006, and we ended up settling it right after voir dire concluded. But we were, ready to go. And, we got a pretty good result for a client.
I remember it was the first time I was really kind of schooled on judicial decorum because the judge, I walked into the courtroom one morning and he had another calendar going on in a case. And I think I said, "Good morning, Judge." And he says, "You will never refer to me as judge in this courtroom. It is your honor."
That's
and,
right.
I was corrected. And the key is know your court, right? Know your judge.
Well, you know what? And that's one thing that, obviously litigators experience. Not all judges are the same. Some are better about being an unbiased referee. Some are, most of them are pretty good, but that judge in particular, who I don't even remember his name, and I wouldn't name his name.
Was it Brett? Was it Brett something?
Well, we had a judge, big, is it not Bixel?
Right, the one that was handling the Hannah, the mermaid. Who's the woman that was in the movie Mermaid? Right.
I can't remember that. You know what? I should have looked at that. That she had another trial in her courtroom.
Yes.
Bendix was his name, Judge Bendix. She's now on the appellate court, and some case that was in the news. You're right. And I can't remember exactly.
I got to look this up. Mermaid and Hannah.
Oh, Daryl Hannah.
Daryl Hannah.
Yeah. Daryl Hannah had been arrested. Yeah, she had been protesting.
They were squatting on somebody's house or land or something. So yeah, John, I remember that judge that was assigned to us, and then she had to oversee that Daryl Hannah case where Daryl Hannah was sitting in with a bunch of other squatters, and so we got that other judge, and so I was educated on proper judicial decorum with that court, so which was fine.
The judge that we were referred to by Judge Bendix when she decided she wasn't going to try the case had been admonished by the Judicial Council here in California for becoming embroiled with a lawyer. I didn't even really know what that meant at the time, but it just means basically that he would get personal with attorneys. And that's another thing you got to deal with, obviously, as one of the X factors when you're going to trial. You got to hope you have a good judge, and you don't even know who that's going to be always. I don't know how it works in Florida, but in California, everything's pretty much an independent calendar now, at least in Southern California, which means you get assigned to your trial judge from the very beginning. But that doesn't mean that they necessarily going to, ultimately try the case. I just settled a case, the one that I was preparing for trial, and the judge in that case was an X factor that was one of the reasons that I thought settlement was a good option for my client. We got a good result. There's always a range of what your possible outcomes are going to be at trial and a range of possible outcomes at settlement. We got a pretty good one, right kind of in the middle. Could have gotten a little better, could have gotten worse. But with that judge, I just, you got to play the hand you're dealt. And sometimes. Yeah, no.
And certainly that has that's a variable, right? When you're in a case, and if you're going to engage in some type of mediation or alternative dispute, non-binding arbitration, or decide if there's a way to resolve it before you get to trial. I mean, you and I both know that while the judge has significant influence and power, they're ultimately they are the judge of the law, right? And it's the people in the box, the jurors, that decide the facts, and that's who you've got to persuade. But
thank God for juries. It's one of the best things that our founding fathers, and I guess it dates back to common law in England, but that you're exactly right, is that the juries are really the most important. And but the judges can have an impact. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's always, you got to prove yourself and win some cases when you're a young lawyer if you can. It's the best possible, the best. I think the best best way to start is to try to get as much trial work as you can, so people know that you know how to try a case. I still think, when I was clerking in law school at Bracewell Patterson in Houston years ago, decades ago, I remember the head of their labor department told me, "John, you don't want 12 strangers deciding your fate." And you don't. Ideally, you want to work out the deal on your own if you can, but you've got to be able to go to a jury trial, because that's obviously the best negotiating standpoint, or the point to negotiate from is, we're going to go to trial and we know how to do it. We've done it before, and we'll do it again.
100%. 100%. The other side knows you're going to go to the distance, and we all know the lawyers that don't, and of course those lawyers probably don't get the on a percentage basis, probably don't get the level of relief that they could for their clients. Let me jump right in. What's it like being a lawyer in the land of Hollywood? Beautiful scenery, beautiful people, and probably a lot of crazy shit going on out there. What's it like?
Especially now, since COVID, it was night and day. California and Florida were the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of how that all went down. LA is an interesting place. I've always said this. Rob, we may talk about it, but I came out here originally after law school to work in the entertainment business. I took the bar exam thinking I would just follow through on my legal education, but never thought that I would actually practice law. I got a job at Creative Artist Agency, CAA, which now there's another agency called William Morris Endeavor, WME, which is probably the biggest agency in the business now, but CAA was at the time. Mike Ovitz, who was the most powerful man in Hollywood, ran it, and he was there when I was there. But I got out of Hollywood.
Wait a minute. So you come out from Dallas, right, to LA, and you're going to take the bar, but you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to pursue my acting career.
Well, at this point, I was behind the camera. I was working. I ended up working for an agent as an assistant agent. Yeah. And we were representing talent. Our clients were Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, Sarah Jessica Parker. We were back then. It's long enough that we were working on getting Pierce Brosnan to be James Bond, which he was in, I think, 1 or 2 films. That was after I left, but we were starting that process. So I did that for a while. But like I said, I was just thinking I was going to follow through and not necessarily practice law. But without going to all the gory details, I wended my way back to the practice of law. But one of the things I say is in Hollywood, in LA, Hollywood kind of taints everything. I remember going to the dry cleaners one time when I first moved here, and there was a guy that had headshots all over the wall in the dry cleaners. And the guy was at my gym, and he was some investment guy. I go, "Why do you have a headshot at the cleaners?" And I used to joke, if you move here, you got to get a headshot, because everybody, and we had clients over the years, I worked for a guy and I did his litigation who was outside general counsel for a company. They were basically raised money and did securities offerings, and they had nothing to do with the entertainment business. But the minute they met somebody, they ended up financing a Robert De Niro film that ended up not getting made. But we worked just on the financing part of it, not the actual the talent contracts or anything. We were just dealing with money. But the minute people get exposed to Hollywood, they jump. So there's always an element of everything.
After that dry cleaning visit, did you get your photo, your headshot?
My headshot is nowhere to be seen. And I used to be I am on IMDb, but I had to take my picture off of there because people.
What is that, John, for our guests that are watching?
That's the Internet Movie Database, which if you think of some actor and you go, man, who was that actor in such and such movie? You can go there, type in the movie, you can see the cast, has all the actors' credits. But I had to take my picture off of there because even though that was another lifetime ago, people would Google me and they go, "Are you an actor or are you a lawyer?" I go, "I'm a lawyer."
Well, maybe I'm both.
Take my picture off.
Can't I be a lawyer and an actor?
Well, Fred Thompson did that. And by the way, I was doing that for a little bit back in 2001. I remember I had a very contentious case up in the Eastern District of California in the federal court up in Sacramento. And the judge was Judge Levy, who left a little bit after I had the case, and he became the dean of Duke Law School. And he was actually a nice guy, but he was a hard ass and whatever. But it was very contentious partnership dissolution. Well, it was an LLC, but basically a dissolution case. The people that owned the limited liability company had a very profitable product in the equestrian world for horses. And it was very profitable right out of the gate. And so they were really fighting, and they did not like each other. And so I'm in the courtroom in this very ornate, fancy courthouse up in Sacramento, California on Tuesday of that week. And I flew back. And then on Thursday and Friday, I did 2 days on Passions, the soap opera on NBC. And I remember thinking, man, my head's swimming and it's cool. I was using my brain, and I was, I did some other things besides that soap opera. But
so did you get training in how to be an actor? And I think I recall you had your SAG card, right? Your Screen Actors Guild card.
Yeah, you have to have it in order to. I've got 6 credits. I worked on primetime and some movies, or actually really mostly TV, one movie. But yeah, I got my SAG card, and I think we talked about that. I don't know if you want to segue into that, but I remember being in law school and seeing a flyer on the wall that said, "Oh, acting lessons for lawyers," and that's kind of interesting. And then having gone through that, and I will say I studied with some really, really good people here in Los Angeles. And again, I was doing like contract legal work for a day job, so to speak, doing law and motion mostly. That's how I developed my legal writing and research skills. Cause that's, how it is. You get a case in, and the law and motion stuff is the inefficient and time consuming part of it, along with discovery. And that's basically what I did. But I was acting at the same time, back in the 90s. And I got great training. And that training, it has absolutely, it is applicable to being a trial lawyer, because you're getting.
So tell the viewers and our listeners, that is there a dichotomy? Is there between being an actor, a trial lawyer, and an actor? Or do those skills or those traits somehow mesh together? And we had talked about authenticity, and of course, actors on the screen or on stage, they appear, they get into a role, and I've heard actors that actually go out and meet the people that they're going to be playing on TV, so that they can be more authentic in their role. But it might seem to some people listening and watching that acting is fake, and being a lawyer you need to be authentic. But how do those two come together?
Well, that's interesting you say that. Without going on into all the acting, the best acting is not fake. What's fictional is the writing, the scenario that the screenwriter or the playwright wrote. But the actor's job is to be truthful within those imaginary circumstances. So it's really an actor's job. A good actor is being truthful, not fake. And so you learn about breathing and kind of relaxing your body and calming your mind down. And the common ground between acting and trial work is you're getting in front of people and you're communicating ideas to them. And instead of it being a fictional script that somebody wrote, it's your own words that when you draft your opening statement or you do your closing statement. And so in that sense, it's there. I mean, there's an absolute overlap, and the techniques that you use or you learn for your voice and your vocal production, and it's not even about sound. It's about being in your body. I mean, I learned about just standing still. People don't realize you get up in front of people and you don't really notice it, and you're moving around. It's like, no, be still. And that helps you communicate. And it's very uncomfortable. I mean, you'd have acting class things you do at the beginning. We do exercises, and they would just have you turn to the person next to you who, you're sitting in seats in a theater, and you just look at them right in the face. Just don't say anything. Just try looking at somebody that you don't know that well, right in the eye, and don't say anything for about 2 minutes, and you're going to be like, wow, it's kind of not embarrassing, but you feel shy. And all of that it feeds right into being a trial lawyer, because again, it's the same thing. It's not dinner and a show and you have a trial, but it is 12 strangers that are going to be told a story, and you're going to give them the best version of that story for your client. And you need to hold their attention. You need to interest them if you can. Obviously, you need, emotions are how people make decisions. All of those things apply to, if you're in a play in a theater, or if you're in front of 12 people in a jury box. So I think there's a lot of it.
I've heard this before, and it's probably true. There's three people in each of us. There's how we view ourselves. There's how other people view us, and then there's the real us, right? So, right. And in trial, it's important of how they view us, right? The jurors or the judge view us. And, as you're talking, I'm thinking the acting part, you're on stage. In a courtroom, you're on stage, the proverbial stage. And you touched upon it, that there's a story being told. I've always said trials are about at least two competing stories. And sometimes you got, the good guy and the bad guy. And you're, as a lawyer, you're a main character in the story, right?
You're also the writer and the performer, And, most of us lawyers, I'm sure you do it. You get ready for you get about 2 months away from trial, and you start talking to your colleagues and say, hey, what about this? What do you think about that? On your arguments. And so they're almost like an acting coach for you in terms of, getting more specific when you're getting ready to go to trial. And anyway, like I said, there was a lot of crossover. And again, just like a good example, Daniel Day-Lewis, he was being very truthful in all of his performances. He was not being fake. The fake part is the writing and the scenario that's in the script. But there's a lot of crossover. And you and I talked about it recently. And I don't know if you want me to say this now or want to wait, but
yeah, go ahead.
Well, so everybody out there, I already was aware of this concept of authenticity, and Rob will tell you because he's got some input on it too. But everybody, and you learn this in acting, everybody is inevitably you're going to do your best if you're true to who you are, and it doesn't matter if you're in sales, it doesn't matter if you're dating, it doesn't matter if you're in front of a jury or anything. It's life. Is you're going to we're not all there's one Brad Pitt, and I ain't that. I'm me. So you just got to be the best version of yourself, and that means you have to be authentic. Some people are kind of funny and they're a little bit more less formal. Some people are more serious. If you're authentically yourself, you're going to give yourself the best chance. If you're on a date with someone, if you're trying to get a jury to rule to vote in your favor, you got to be your authentic self. And I saw that play out in a courtroom in real life with Rob Eckard, and that was back in our trial. And Rob remembers this. It's the Castleberry case. She was suing our client, who was based, I think, in Tampa at the time. And that was a California. She was a California resident. And so he had some other legal stuff Rob had been handling in Florida. But that was a case that had been filed out there. And the plaintiff's counsel was kind of a surfer dude. I don't know if he surfed, but he was like loosey-goosey. He was like the guy on Scooby-Doo, he was like, hey, and he got up and did his voir dire, and he was being light and making them laugh a little bit and kind of, joking. And that's who he was. He was actually a very good trial lawyer. He's a sole practitioner, but he had a lot of trial experience, and that's who he was. And Rob did his voir dire, and Rob is, a power lifter, and he was a prosecutor. And he's a total teddy bear. Sorry, he's a great guy, but he's more serious. And so I saw the voir dire and the interaction with the jury panel with the surfer guy from California, and the Rob's version of that of voir dire, where he's a prosecutor and was very serious and very respectful and said, thank you very much, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, man, you could not have more distinct personalities in front of these total strangers who don't want to be here in the first place because they're on jury duty. And both the plaintiff's lawyer and Rob were great. And I could tell, you can, do a voir dire, you can see how people are responding. And they liked Rob, and I think they liked the plaintiff's lawyer pretty much as well. But the reason that's important is because both the plaintiff's lawyer and Rob were being authentically who they were. And you don't have to be any certain thing. Just be yourself and tell the truth. And that's what you do when you're
key. Can you imagine someone coming in to a courtroom dressed like Jerry Spence because they think, wearing the lambs or the fringe jacket, and cowboy boots, and Jerry Spence, he gets away with that, right? But boy, if Rob Eckard did that, that would look pretty awkward.
That's exactly right, and that's like an extreme example, but it really does matter. Everybody, if you're out there and you're either in law school or you're practicing now, there are things you need to get up and practice, and again, just be yourself. I mean, I had a retired Teamster on my jury. I had a month-long trial about 10 years ago against two partners at Quinn Emanuel, one of whom had been the U.S. attorney for the Central District of California, which I think is the second largest U.S. attorney's office in the country. And he was the U.S. attorney, not just an assistant USA. And on that jury, afterwards, it was a mixed result. It was a hard fought thing. We won 1.9 ultimately for our client, but I talked to the jury afterwards, and this retired Teamster said, John, I could tell you were telling me the truth. And those other lawyers are the kind of lawyers people don't like. And it really was. I think we had 17 days of testimony in that case. And I think I spent a full day, not all at once, but over the course of the trial, I probably spent a day's worth of time reading deposition transcripts, because the Quinn Emanuel lawyers had come in, I think about 60 days before the first trial date, and they had not been litigating the case. And I've never seen testimony change like that. So I go, well, that's not what you said in your deposition. Let's go through. Point being that, that's the other part of it. It's like, I really was happy that he told me that, because he could tell I was telling him the truth. And that goes back to being authentic. Be yourself, tell the truth about the case. I learned, you need to go through the weaknesses of your case. In fact, the guy that taught me how to do some of this said, I think direct examination what part of the reason we have it is to eliminate cross-examination. And his point was, when there are weaknesses, you talk about it. Don't ignore it and let the other person bring it up and cross. And that all goes back to being honest. Tell the truth.
Is to take the wind out of the sail, right, of the other side, even an opening statement to touch upon what the defense, if you're a plaintiff's lawyer, what the defense is going to be. And address maybe some of the not so good facts on your case, so that you're not, you need to really embrace them. I agree. Staying away from them, bad facts is not good for you as a lawyer in trial. What's interesting, the Donald Trump case out of New York, where he's being criminally prosecuted for what appears to be a crime that, if it was a crime at all, that expired based upon the statute of limitations, misdemeanor, but somehow the prosecutor, the DA in that case, believed that they could bootstrap it onto a false journal entry and tag it into somehow a federal offense, which he has no jurisdiction for. But nevertheless, that case out of New York and the debacle, I guess, yesterday with Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, taking the stand. And of course, the guy's a train wreck, but testifying that, some of these text messages and phone calls that prove that President Trump knew that this money was going to be used for Stormy Daniels, and was going to cause, and it was being done with the intent to help him with his election in the campaign. And so while Cohen certainly did no good, I don't think, for the government's case, or the state of New York's case yesterday, embracing bad facts has to be done. And I think if those, and I didn't watch openings, but I would assume that those lawyers for the state of New York would have embraced those and maybe turned them in a way that said, this is just more evidence of the depth at which Trump went through to hide these transactions. I mean, it's a weak argument, but it's an argument, at least, that can mesh with the government's case, or the state's case in New York. And of course, I still think they got massive problems, but just framing the issues and understanding the issues and understanding, we're like pilots, right? We don't build the plane, we just fly it. But we've also got to be aware of, the bad things that are going on, and how to embrace them and how to minimize them.
I've been paying a little bit of attention to that trial, and I know his testimony went off the rails, because even in the trial, he contradicted himself and lied. And he's been convicted of perjury once, and then he's admitted to committing perjury in front of Congress. So that's another thing. Some things, and not that he's their client, he's their witness, but that's another thing they should teach you about in law school, is when to say no, because there are plenty of people you just should not be involved with.
Well, the case, my opinion is, of course, like many others, the case should have never been brought. And it's just, weaponization of a prosecutorial agency. And if the guy's last name wasn't Trump, and if he wasn't running, you wouldn't see it happening. But
Well, yeah, and that guy's a train wreck, as you said, and you gotta get out in front of whatever's going to happen, and you know that there are going to be times that you're. The other thing is, I'm sure you've had it happen. I had an expert who's a great expert I've used. I do inverse condemnation, which makes me a constitutional lawyer, by the way, officially, because that's a constitutional claim. There's a federal basis for a federal claim, but we don't do that. We do it in state court. It's our Article 1, Section 19 of the California Constitution, and I just fell into it, and I do a lot of inverse. In fact, I just settled a Woolsey fire case, which was the Malibu fire in 2018, and we just literally got it done. We got the settlement agreement signed, which is confidential, but we got it signed about 10 days ago. So it's 6 years. That's how long it takes to get stuff done. But
I remember you. I can't believe it settled, and I know it's confidential. And I'm sure I'm sure it was a good outcome for your client, and I'm sure you and your firm. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I think we got a really good result. The bottom line is that we were the last private plaintiff. There were, I think, something like 1,500 properties. There are multiple people associated with those properties and there's families, but there were about 1,500 private properties, and then there were I don't know how many public entities, cities and everything, because it went from Ventura County all the way down to Malibu. But we were literally the last one with the California Attorney General's office. And I didn't want to be the last man standing, but that's what we had to do. We had a very, very expensive home in the Broad Beach area of Malibu. And we were kind of an outlier in terms of how big our house was and how much it was going to cost to rebuild. But either way, we just got that done. But anyway, I don't know.
Congratulations on that, and you deserve
Thank
not only
you.
accolades, you deserve some time off. I think to
Yeah, I had both those things coming, and that's another thing. I don't know again in Florida, but in California, they got so backed. They were already backed up, but they got so backed up with COVID. I mean, I was just sitting in the morning calendar in the department where. In fact, I was in there about 10 times. You know how it goes before trial. There's a final status conference, and there were a bunch of ex-party things filed by the other side, et cetera. So just in the lead up to the trial in January, February, I was in there about 10 times, and that judge was setting trials, in January and February this year. He was setting them for October of 2025. Wow. And they had already been filed probably 3 or 4 months before that. So they were all really backed up. And it's kind of a mess, but that was.
Let me ask you this. Well, we're on that subject. Pivot a little bit away from the law, so to speak, but living and practicing in LA or California, and of course, California is an amazing, beautiful state, and I've been there many, many times. And but you see a lot of news about homelessness and illegal immigration and budget problems the state's facing. I just saw this morning, I read an article from the ABA that the California bar is having money problems and is thinking about moving the California bar to Kaplan to administer, but they nixed that on the agenda at the last state bar meeting, which was apparently this week. And the multi-state, and it says the California State Bar's admission fund faces insolvency for 2026 and a $3.8 million deficit this year. So this is the California bar. But what's pivoting just a little bit away? What's it like out there living in LA? And is there, you see the homelessness issues everywhere, but in immigration, what's it like right now?
Well, by the way, I didn't even know that. You're giving me some information about my own bar. By the way, they're raising the bar dues next year, and they've been very, they're explaining themselves. You get emails every day about why is it going up. And by the way, they're going to lower the passage rate. We do not need a lower pass rate. We don't need more incompetent lawyers. We got way too many of those already.
But, it's interesting. I'm just curious, and we'll tack this on the end if we have time, but our Florida Supreme Court issued an order to the Florida Bar a couple months ago that said no more funding for diversity, equity, inclusion. Done. No more funds from Florida bar members to be allocated towards DEI. And so I can't imagine that would be something that would happen in California. But again, back to my question, what's going on in the environment out there?
I've lived here for a long, long time. And, it's always, you hear, it's supposedly a sign of you getting old when you say the good old days kind of thing. But it's different than when I moved out here. There's no doubt about it. There was a road rage murder literally about 200 yards from my front door in the building I live in Marina Del Rey about 9 months ago. And that's
a beautiful area.
Yeah, it's a very nice area. In fact, the LA County sheriffs have jurisdiction here because technically Marina Del Rey, where I live, is not part of the city of LA. It's part of the county. It's an unincorporated area of the county. And the sheriffs don't mess around here. So there's really not many homeless people. And it shows you that was a big deal with Sheriff Villanueva, who was our sheriff until this last election in 2022. And the Democrat Party wanted him out. So he was out. I did some work for him, which was fascinating. He was investigating some corruption at the MTA, at the Metropolitan Transit Authority. And the reason it was kind of in the news is because the subject of that investigation had left the MTA in LA, gone to Denver to run the Denver International Airport, and he was Biden's nominee for to run the FAA, and his nomination was scrapped because of the investigation of Villanueva. But the point is, one of the reasons the political class didn't like him is because he was actually making an impact in the homelessness. Marina Del Rey is just south of Venice, and Venice Beach is the famous area that you've heard about, and Muscle Beach and all that. And it has a horrible homeless problem. Yeah. And I was just riding my bike there about 2 weeks ago. I'm about 1/8 of a mile from the beach, and I go ride, and I don't need Peloton where I am because it's beautiful weather all the way. I mean, I looked that the mean temperature year round where I live is, I think, 70.4 degrees.
No, it's gorgeous.
If there's a heaven, it's got to be like this. But the point is, I'm riding my bike down to Venice, and there's this crazy guy with, it looks like a sheath for a machete or something, and he's banging a street sign. And I'm going through the intersection, and you got to be careful. You got to give him a wide berth, and it definitely has an impact. I worked downtown in 2018, 2019, and for people in LA, the West Siders don't go to downtown if they can help it. And, downtown's been developed, to the nth degree at this point, but still, I'm not a downtown guy. I'm a beach guy. But I was working downtown on some Woolsey fire cases with a firm when I started out on this stuff, and I left to go to Kramer, but it was tough. I mean, I parked about two blocks south of the building where I worked, and we were right next to the library, right in the heart of the downtown, some of the most expensive, office space in downtown LA. And, it was like a zombie movie when I was walking to my car at night, because, we work long hours, and I was working long hours back then. And it was emotional. It made me sad. I mean, these people are just walking around, and that was one of the nicer areas. It wasn't Skid Row. Skid Row is horrible. That's farther east from downtown.
It's interesting. Your governor came out. Your governor came out this week and said that the rest of the country ought to follow his lead on how they've been out front in the plan to deal with homelessness. And I thought, what is this guy smoking?
Yeah, you don't want that. And another thing I hate to say, but the metro station, we have a subway in LA, believe it or not, and there's knuckleheads. They built it going certain areas so almost no one rides it. There is a train that goes to Santa Monica now. But I was walking right by the big metro, the main station when I was working downtown, same thing in 2019. And I couldn't park at my building because there was literally one of those yellow police tapes for like 2 blocks around my building. I go, what is going on? And there had been some guy down in that subway with a shotgun. And the police, there were police down, they have MTA police. They could have chased him up the stairs, and he was running across the street, and the police shot him. And that was a Sunday. I was going down to work. I was like, what? I mean, it's just nuts. But
That
I
was a
talked
place
to,
when I was trying that case with you out there, 2004, 5, 6, whatever
by the
it
way,
was.
my office was a block away from that hotel that you stayed in. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where I was working.
and when we were out there, you took me to some places. I remember going to a restaurant, and Elton John was in the restaurant with like 30 people. I remember you taking me down, I think, to Santa Monica, and I remember Tim Robbins riding his bike past us, the actor from Shawshank Redemption. And I was like, this is kind of cool, man, all this stuff. How are the places now, like the Sunset Strip or the Hollywood Star, Walk of Fame streets, or the Santa Monica Pier? Are those, does the government, law enforcement, they keep those pretty clear for tourists?
I don't know, man. That the Santa Monica Pier, I used to take my daughter down there. She grew up and was born about 4 or 5 blocks from there. And I always kept my, I was on a head on a swivel because there's some crazy stuff. It's LA. I mean, there's crazy stuff everywhere.
You just never know.
You never know. And it is, like I said, Hollywood kind of invades everything you do. It is amazing. You'll see star sightings. I remember about 3 or 4 years ago, I'd had a hearing, and I was coming into my office building at about 10 o'clock or something, because I was getting there after being in court. So no one was really in the elevator lobby of the building. And this guy is already standing there. He's already pushed the button. We get on the elevator. I'm kind of tired, and I'm thinking about what I got to go do. And I look, and it's John Densmore from The Doors. It's just me and Densmore on the elevator. It's like you have those kinds of experiences.
I had that leaving one time, and I was in I took a shower. I was taking a red eye back to the East Coast, and I think I was at the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, and I'm down there. It's 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, and I run into the actor, just he and I, from the movie Miami Vice.
Don
not Don Johnson, the movie.
Oh, Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell, yeah.
You told me that at the Standard Hotel. Yeah.
I'm shaving, and he just comes out of the sauna and like, hey, what's up? I'm like, nah, I'm just getting ready to head home. So LA's a crazy town, man. Well, listen, we're going to be wrapping up here, John. Can you give our viewers and listeners well, before I get there, what's on the horizon for John Torbett? You look like you're still rolling hard and practicing law, and no end in sight. Anything on the horizon for you that you can tell us?
I think I'm going to stay affiliated with my firm. I'm doing almost exclusively plaintiff's work now. I had done more defense work in my earlier years. This case was a good result. It was actually 8 figures that we just settled, and my colleague's happy about that. And I'm going to stay with him. I will say this, and I don't know how it's gone in Florida, and I'm not a big proponent of it, but my daughter lives with her mother in Houston, and I want to be with her more. So I'm probably going to be based there more than I am here. I've been going back and forth for 3 years, and I'm going to continue doing that. But in that case I was talking about, I was in that courtroom probably 10 times from January through early April, and I believe there was another lawyer in there one time. Every single lawyer was doing it was making their appearances on Zoom. And so you can do that. And I am going to do that to the extent I can. But I do think that, again, it's very important to be in front of a judge, I think, when you're doing law in motion stuff. So if you have an important hearing, you got to be in front of them. I'm going to do that.
I think you're right. And your name, I just saw your name. I know we were scheduled to do this podcast at a previous time, and you had something going on, but I saw an article that about you, the famous lawyer John Torbett. And that was another case you had representing some Hollywood elite, and that was interesting too.
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, it pervades things in LA. And what I typically do is real estate and business litigation. I represented Denise Richards. I've represented the case you're talking about was the
Charlie Sheen's ex-wife, right?
That's right. But the case you were talking about was I represented the guy that used to run ABC television network. But the real estate brokerage is the agency in that case. And that's the one that's run by the guy his wife is on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and he's got a Netflix show. So there's always some connection, and so the reason those people were kind of high profile is that's the reason it was in that tabloid that you're talking about. And they said my name because, they were talking about the hearing that we had. It was kind of contentious hearing, but yeah, I mean, that's part of it. You have, famous clients, famous defendants, and it happens, periodically. You're going to deal with that.
You're an amazing guy, a great lawyer, and a great dad. If any of our viewers or listeners wanted to reach out to you or send you a message, how would they do that?
I mean, they just email me, I guess, is the best way. And I've got like not the firm, the Kramer email, but the Jet at Torbett Law is pretty easy to remember. JET at Torbett Law. They can reach out.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you being here, man. You're a good friend, and I don't, of course, I'd love to see you more, but it's always good talking to you and catching up with you. I told my wife the other night, I got off the phone with you and I said, I don't remember the time. Not only did I can't remember the time I spoke to somebody on the phone for almost 2 hours, but I can't remember the time I spoke to another guy on the phone for 2 hours, unless it was a case that I had to speak to somebody about. But no, it flew by, and it's always good to catch up with you, man. And you're a solid person, a solid lawyer. And I'm proud that I know you, and I'm really happy that you were able to come on today.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I feel the same way. Like I said, Rob and I are kind of like I said, I won't say it's war. It wasn't that. It's like doing KP duty, peeling potatoes, getting ready. But you go through that and you develop a bond. And Rob and I have been fast friends for 20 some odd years. And that's how we met. So anyway, I feel the same way, and I'm glad to have come on. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you soon, actually.
Maybe I can have you on again. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this has been another episode of Time Is Not On Your Side. Please tune in for additional episodes. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and all those major social media sites. And remember, victory comes to those who are relentless in their pursuit for greatness. Until next time, thank you.
You've been tuning into Time Is Not On Your Side with your host, board-certified litigation attorney, Robert Eckard. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, roberteckardlaw.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.